Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do an updated skin tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is add a second layer and bring it to the bottom of the sketch layer. We want the sketch layer to be above everything, so in order to do that, we have to put the color layer below the sketch layer so that when we color, the colors would go behind the sketch and not in front of it. With the watercolor brush, I'm going to pick the dark base color that I had saved in the top left palette. I prefer to paint the whole canvas with the base color and work my way through. I like to begin with a darker base color because as I'm applying a lighter skin color above the base color became a shadow. You could start with a lighter base color though and work your way with darker colors if you prefer. So after the base color is done, we're going to apply the skin colors next. So reduce the opacity level of the watercolor brush less than 50% for ease of blending. Also, add a third layer above the second layer for the skin color. If you're using a tablet, gently press down your pen as you color. Make sure to use the eyedropper as well when you color by clicking the buttons on your pen or by holding the Alt key. I would suggest you to get into the habit of using the eyedropper tool as you paint because it really helps you with blending. So now I'm adding a fourth layer to put in highlights. So right now I'm going to be showing you where I put the highlights. So that is where I mainly focus on putting the highlights in. So I'm going to delete that layer and focus on my third layer again. And I'm going to apply a lighter color skin onto the forehead, the areas where I showed you to focus on adding the highlight. I also want to remind you that, as you can tell, I'm always using the eyedropper tool as I'm painting the skin color. It helps me mix the skin color with the base color so that the skin color also absorbs the base color and creates like a nice shadow. So now we're going to be focusing on the eye area. What I like to do is I like to go back to the color tab and pick a slightly darkish, reddish, orangey color and apply that to the circles of the eye to create to make the eye appear round instead of flat. And what I also like to do is with the same color that I applied for around the eye, I would apply the same colors on the cheek area as a blush or a contour. I'm also applying it under the nose and below the bottom lips and the neck area as well. Now I just pick a darker color to create a depth for the neck, because we want to appear as if the light source is not hitting the neck, but is only focusing on the face. Then with the same color as the eye that we just used for the eye, we're going to apply the same thing on her hand. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to the color palette and pick another light color that I had saved ahead of time. And with that color, we're going to apply that color to the highlighted areas to create more dimension to the face, her face. Also, mess around with the size and opacity level of the brush. What I like to do is, when I'm applying details, I like to decrease the brush size around 2 to 15 range and increase the opacity level to around 80%. But when I'm blending, I like to increase the brush size close to the middle area, like around 50, and decrease the opacity percentage less than 50%. So I skipped a few parts of me highlighting the face because I was being a little bit too picky and I was taking longer than I should have. So now I'm just cleaning up the edges, but I'm just basically repeating the same steps that I explained to you ahead of time, but I'm just adding more lighter color skin tones to create more dimension. So for the eye area, I like to do is apply a lighter reddish color below the eye area where the dark circles are to make the eye appear round. So for the outer edge of the eye, I like to use a darker brownish color, but for the inner eye, I like to leave it light in order to create depth and shadow. Also, what I like to do is, as I'm coloring, I like to flip my image. You can flip the image by clicking the down arrow on the keyboard. One reason why I like to keep flipping my image is that as I'm coloring, I get to find disproportion and fix it right there and then, instead of painting everything and getting it finished and then flipping the image and then noticing disproportion. It's actually very easier to fix it as you paint. So we're going to add another fourth layer and putting it above the third layer but still below the sketch layer. For this layer, we're going to be focusing mainly on the eye area and putting details on the eye area. So right now I'm just painting the eye. I'm not really adding details yet. That's why my opacity level is very low. So again, you want to keep using the eyedropper tool because it really helps you with blending. So now we're going to be painting the eyebrows. What we're going to do is increase the brush size close to 10, but also remaining the opacity level less than 50%, so that the colors would blend easily to the skin color. For the mouth area, I like to create a soft edge. So for the center of the mouth, the color is really bold, but it gradually softens towards the outer edge. How I do that is by gently pressing down the tablet pen and using the eyedropper tool. Alright, so once everything is applied to the face, now it's time to blend. So now we're going to go back to the brush tab and we're going to go down to the skin folder. I created this folder specifically for coloring skin and blending skin. So these are the type of brushes that I use for blending. If you do not have these brushes, you could download it by clicking the cloud icon located on the bottom left of the brush tab. Click on it and a variety of brushes will appear for you to download. So we're going to start off blending by switching to oil pastel. We're going to increase the brush size to close to 50 in the middle area, and we're going to increase the opacity percentage close to 50-60% range. What I like about the oil pastel is that the texture of it appears like skin texture. Also, make sure to use the eyedropper. As you can see, I'm always using the eyedropper as I'm applying the oil pastel. Now, this is optional and and depends on taste and preferences. But if you want the skin tones to look smoother, you could switch to blur and apply that over the oil pastel to make the skin look smooth. I also like to use the splatter brush too. The texture is slightly similar to the oil pastel, but the splatter brush is more pixelated. But if you're fine with using just the oil pastel, that's also good as well. This is just how I prefer to paint my skin tone. For the lips, we're going to switch back to watercolor and use a darker color for the inner parts of the lips. Then we're going to pick another slightly lighter color to create shine or glossiness. Moving on to the eyebrows, we're going to use the watercolor brush and decrease the brush size very small, but also maintaining the opacity percentage less than 50%, so that when you color, it creates a fading effect and the eyebrows would appear more natural. Using the eyedropper tool, I captured a dark color from the eyes and applying that dark colors to the outer parts of the eyebrows, but ignoring the inner parts so that there is a fading effect from light to dark on the brows. We're going to switch to pen sharp now. You could also find this at the cloud. One thing why I like the pen sharp is that it creates a sharp edge. It's very helpful when you're painting hair strands. Also notice how the size of the pen sharp is very small, but the opacity percentage is very high. This allows for adding details and making the image more clear. Alright, so I finished both of the eyebrows, and now we're going to be using the pen sharp to create eyelashes. It's the same technique as the eyebrows, but we're just using it to create eyelashes. Also, if you want to reduce the sharpness of the pen sharp, you could use the smudge tool to soften the edges.